Hello everyone! Today we're going to learn a little bit more about another one of the tribes of Israel. And the tribe that we are going to talk about today is the tribe of Manaseh. Now, who was Manaseh? Who was the tribe of Manaseh? If we look back on the stories of Joseph and his brothers, it's never mentioned that Manasseh is one of his brothers. So where does Manasseh come from? Who is Manasseh? If we continue reading the story though, if we follow on and see that Joseph is sold into slavery and then his family finally comes back to him and they live in the land of Goshen, we see that Joseph has two sons. The oldest son was named Manaseh and the second one was named Ephraim. And so that's where Manaseh comes in. Manaseh was Joseph's son. He was the grandchild of Jacob, or Israel as he's also called. And so that's where the tribe kind of starts. Jacob was getting old. They lived in the land of Goshen. Eyes were failing him, he was getting blind, he was weak, and he knew his days were coming to end. He knew he was going to die. So one day, Joseph comes with his two sons, Ephraim and Manaseh, to get the blessing of Jacob upon the two children. And we know back in that day, the blessing of the patriarch was something very important, because the patriarch blessing was going to basically lead the whole lives of whoever he was blessing. The whole inheritance, whatever would fall on them, and the whole guidance of their lives and the generations to come was all based on this blessing. And so we see the story of how Jacob blesses Ephraim and Manaseh. So what happens is Joseph comes, since the father is blind already, Joseph places the children in front of him, and he puts the right hand on Manaseh because Manasseh is the older, and the left hand on Ephraim because he's the younger. We know that the older would get the greater blessing and the younger blessing. So anyway, what happened is that Jacob started blessing the two children, but he switched the hands. So the left hand went on Manaseh while the right hand went on Ephraim, who was younger. So he switched the hands. And so when he started blessing him, and then Joseph realized, well, he switched the hands. This is like a similar story to what happened to Jacob and Esau. Now the younger one was gonna get the greater blessing, and the older one was gonna get the lesser one. Like, what was happening here? But Jacob had done it purposefully, and he said that no. When Joseph tried to switch his hand, he said no, the younger is gonna be the greater one, and so he ended up blessing them like that. And it's very similar to the story of Esau and Jacob. That when Jacob betrayed his brother and put the fake hair on his skin and got the blessing. But this time, like, Manaseh wasn't deceiving anyone. He wasn't doing something wrong. And Jacob said that Ephraim would be the greater, but we're going to see that in the end, Manaseh would outlast Ephraim. So let's look a little bit at the blessing. I want to read one of the verses in the Bible in Genesis 48, verse 15. It says, "And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my father Abraham and Isaac did walk, and the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me all from evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named of them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth." So we see here part of the blessing that we just read was that the angel which redeemed me from all evil, that the Lord bless these lads. So we see that part of this blessing, Manaseh yearned for more and received it more. And this was because Manaseh and all his descendants, so his generations, his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they really yearned more and prized the blessings of the Lord. They were actually the ones that followed the Lord more and truly served him. So if we read in the stories of all the tribes, we know that the tribes were separated into two groups, the tribe of Judah and Benjamin, and then the rest of the tribes. And Manaseh was in the rest of the tribes in the northern kingdom. And we know that this group of tribes was the evil one, those who didn't obey God, that the kings were not evil in the sight of the Lord, that they disobeyed God. But throughout the course of the stories, we see that Manaseh often, in most occasions, that they went to the other tribe, the tribe of Judah, and they reformed and they used the new principles of following God and doing his will. And as we continue seeing throughout the stories, we see that the tribe of Manaseh, they really wanted to serve the Lord. They really searched themselves and they really followed the Lord in what they did. And so the story goes and several kings of Judah, King Asa, he broke idols and he removed the worship of the idols, and he improved that the people may worship God. And we see in the story that the tribe of Manasseh, many of them came to Judah to take on this reformation as well, to change themselves as well. And they saw that God was working in the tribe of Judah, so they in the good group. So they went and they wanted to receive that blessing too. We also have the King Hezekiah of Judah, the good group, that he did the Passover feast, and we see that many of the tribe of Manasseh, they came and they humbled their hearts and they partook of this Passover feast too, because they didn't want to miss out. If their group of tribes wasn't going to do it, if they weren't doing the right, then they had to find the right where it was. And then we also see that throughout the course, the tribes of Judah, they would destroy the bad idols. And then the Manaseh, the tribe, they also went to their own lands and they started destroying the idols, and they wanted to reform themselves and bring God back into the homes. We also have the story of Josiah. These kings weren't of the tribe of Manasseh. They were of the tribe of Judah and Benjamin. But Manasseh always went, the tribes went, to get from the blessings, to receive and to change themselves like they did. So the story of Josiah, we know the story that Josiah, he returned and he was going to rebuild the temple because it had been destroyed. And so Manaseh, the tribe of Manasseh, they came and they wanted to help, and they provided means to help restore the temple. Now, these are just some stories, but really the Bible doesn't record that many details and stories about the tribe of Manasseh. But in all of the stories that we see, in all of the little accounts that we have of the tribe of Manasseh, every time we read about them, we see that they were faithful to God, that they were strong in worshiping God, and that every time it's mentioned about their service to the Lord, and that they wanted to serve the Lord, they wanted to be faithful people. And so their desire for the Lord, we should have the same desire. We know that in the end, in heaven, we're going to have the 144,000, and the 144,000 are divided into divisions of tribes. And so we know the 12 tribes of Jacob, Israel. But what's interesting is that in those 12 tribes, Manasseh's in there. And Manasseh's in there, but Dan is not in there. And neither is Reuben. And we see that God saw that because Manasseh was faithful, because he was strong, because they served the Lord, he added them as one of the divisions of the 144,000. Isn't that something so special? That although they weren't at first destined, they, in the end, God rewarded them for their love for the Lord. And we see that in the end story, the story of Ephraim didn't end well. They were evil and they didn't follow the Lord. And in the end, Manasseh outlived the tribe of Ephraim. And in the Bible, it says, especially in Ellen G. White's writings, it says that there's little, even though they were shown very little in the Bible, they had a true desire to serve the Lord. And the name of Manasseh is immortalized in heaven, while Ephraim sinks to oblivion. Now, I just want to share really quickly a little bit about some honorable mentions of people from the tribe of Manasseh. We have Gideon. We all know he was one of the greatest judges in the time of Israel. We also have some warriors from the tribe of Manaseh that came to help David with the Philistines to fight Saul. But although the Philistines didn't allow the tribe of Manasseh to help them, 7 of the greatest warriors of the tribe of Manasseh, they went and they helped David defeat the battle at Ziklag. And later on, when Saul died, the tribe of Manasseh were also a great part in making David the new king at Hebron, and they were a great part in helping choose him. So whatever they did, they asked God for guidance, and they saw where God was working, and they supported that, and they went for that. They really wanted God to work in their hearts. And this is the last honorable mention I have, is there is 5 daughters in the tribe of Manasseh. They were the daughters of Zelophehad, and they were the first ones mentioned in the Bible that they received their own inheritance. So they received their own land, they received their own money, they got their own inheritance. It's, back then it was always the male that received the inheritance, but this is the first time in the Bible that it records that it was a tribe of Manasseh, that there was 5 women daughters who received their own inheritance. And so that's really something interesting. Now, I want to mention that we know that the tribe of Reuben, that they lost their birthright because they weren't following God and they fell through sin. to sin, and also the tribe of Dan, that the character of Dan and later on generations, they were evil in what they did. And so if it weren't for them to fall through like that, and if they weren't have been omitted from the 12 tribes of Israel, then Manasseh wouldn't have been able to take part in that. And that's something for us to learn from. If we don't follow what God is doing, if we don't follow his commandments, if we don't truly seek the good and be servants of the Lord, he can take us out of having that privilege of being in heaven one day. And we need to seek to try our best to follow Christ. It may be hard. If, some saying we're young, we can't do this, like we're gonna wait a little bit, later on God, I will follow the church. But we need to take heed. It's now is the calling of the Lord for us to join him. He needs the strength of the youth. He needs us to be the leaders of tomorrow. I want to read something really quick from Ellen G. White's writing to close up. It says, when God says, behold, I come quickly, hold that fast which thou hast, that no man may take your crown. Your crown. God has a crown prepared for you, and you have to be careful. You have to hold on to it. Hold on to the promise he has given, because it can be taken away from you if you don't hold on to it. It says, it's well that we heed that admonition. If we do not, we may find that it's too late, and that we allowed the world to rob us of our love for the Master. We have allowed the world to rob us of the Master. What in the world are the evil powers, anything worldly, money, power, prominence in certain positions, standards, that we have to be careful. And that our judgment has become so darkened by sin and unbelief that, like Reuben, we fall short of doing the work of the Lord that he has designed that we should accomplish. Someone who, like Joseph, has been separate from those of the same faith without the opportunities we have enjoyed, will by simple faith and trusting in God do the work that we have failed to do and receive the reward we might have obtained. We need to be careful that we don't get omitted from the list of heaven, and that not someone else take our place and do the work that God planned for us to do. We need to be careful, like the tribe of Manasseh, even though they were in the group of the northern kingdom, so they were in the evil group, the people that didn't follow God. But even though they were there, they went and they searched for what was right. They went and they found the good things. They served the Lord. They wanted to change their hearts. They humbled themselves. And the same thing with us youth. Maybe it's in a situation of school, high school, or university. We're surrounded every day by temptations, by evil things, by people that want to influence us. And we need to be careful. We are there, but where should we be? We should be seeking that which is God. We should be reading our Bibles, truly yearning and humbling ourselves and coming before the Lord to receive his blessings and receive his promises, like the tribe of Manasseh. Even though they were little, maybe we may be few, maybe you may be the only one with the belief in your school, but even though you're small, you're mighty and you're powerful, and God can instill in you the important principles, and he will bless you, and that way you can bless others, and maybe hopefully bring someone else to the conversion, so that they may also see the love of God and to receive his blessing. So let's be careful. We were surrounded by temptations, small or big, but if we fall through, we may lose our place in heaven, and we don't want that to happen. So I pray that each one of you, that maybe this has been a little bit of a blessing for you. I hope it helps you, and so that we may follow the good that the tribe of Manasseh had, and that we may have our place saved in heaven, that we may always follow God and seek him with all our heart, and just want to serve him, because it is the young people, God says, it's the youth that will be the leaders, that they will be the ones that will need to lead the church. We need to stand up, and if whatever talents we have, use it for God. Use whatever he gives you and give it back to him. And so this is my wish and prayer, and I hope that this has been a blessing for you in any way. God bless you all.